Part 1. An Unlikely Inheritance. Sarah Finch's life was a meticulously curated spreadsheet of efficiency. Her days in Chicago were a blur of morning spin classes, aggressive marketing campaigns for a tech startup, and evenings spent analyzing quarterly reports. She lived in a world of sleek lines and glass, where history was a museum exhibit and family a faded picture in an old album. Her own family, a scattering of pragmatic Midwestern relatives, had never mentioned anything as exotic as a manor. So when the letter arrived, thick and embossed with a Scottish crest, she initially assumed it was a prank. It was not. The letter, from a firm of Glasgow solicitors, informed her that she was the sole heir to Whitmore Manor, an ancient, sprawling edifice nestled by the shores of Loch Fogmore in the Scottish Highlands. The benefactor was a distant, great-great-uncle she had never known existed, Lord Alistair MacPherson. The man had died without a direct heir and, in a fit of what the solicitor's prose politely termed eccentricity, had bequeathed everything to his last living relative, Sarah. Sarah's first instinct was to sell it. The manor, she reasoned, was a logistical nightmare. The inheritance was an asset to be liquidated, and the money would be a nice bonus. She booked a flight to Glasgow, her mind already calculating market value and potential buyers. She imagined a quick trip, a few days to sign papers, a week at most to hire an agent, and then back to her predictable, productive life. The reality, as always, was less clean. The taxi dropped her at the edge of the windswept Loch Fogmore, the sky a bruised purple that promised rain. Up a winding track through a forest of gnarled oaks stood Whitmore Manor. It was not the romantic, turreted image from a fairy tale. It was a fortress of grey stone, its towers crumbling, its windows like empty eyes staring out at the moor. A thick mist, like a shroud, clung to its base. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and something ancient, something that felt older than the stones themselves. A tall, broad-shouldered man with a storm-cloud grey beard and a shock of black hair stood waiting for her by the heavy iron gate. He wore a tweed jacket and a scowl that could curdle milk. "You'll be Miss Finch," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. "I'm Alistair MacTavish, the caretaker." Sarah held out a hand, but he didn't take it. "Sarah," she corrected him. "And yes, I am. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. MacTavish. It's the clan's loss," he corrected, his gaze sweeping over her designer coat and high heels with thinly veiled disdain. "Lord MacPherson was family. The manor is our history." His possessiveness was immediate and palpable. He saw her as an interloper, a tourist with a deed to their heritage. Sarah's desire to sell solidified into a firm resolve. This man was not going to make this easy, but she was a closer of deals, and yet there was something in his words that unsettled her, as if behind his scowl lay a deeper pain than simple dedication to a family legacy. Part 2. The Ghost in the Walls. Alistair MacTavish's hostility was just the beginning of her problems. The manor was not just old, it was actively trying to fall down. Leaky roofs, drafty halls, and plumbing that sounded like a dying dragon were just the start. Every room was a time capsule of Lord MacPherson's life, filled with dusty books, moth-eaten tapestries, and a profound sense of neglect. Sarah found herself living out of a suitcase in a small, slightly less damp room, surrounded by generations of other people's memories. She felt like an alien on a foreign planet. Her first week was a battle of wills with Alistair. He would point out every flaw with a certain grim satisfaction, as if to say, "See, you don't belong here." He was the keeper of the manor's secrets, both its maintenance issues and its legends. He told her stories of the resident ghost, a mischievous spirit that turned on the heating in the middle of the night and left strange symbols drawn in the morning dew on the windowsills. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, blamed the faulty wiring and condensation. One afternoon, seeking refuge from both the drizzle and Alistair's silent judgment, Sarah wandered into the great library. It was here that she met Fiona Campbell, a tiny, wizened woman with a cascade of silver hair and eyes that twinkled with an ancient wisdom. Fiona was a local historian and a lifelong friend of Lord Macpherson. "The library is the heart of Whitmore," Fiona said, her voice a soft, melodic contrast to Alistair's gruffness. "And you, my dear, are the new beat." Fiona became Sarah's guide, a welcome counterbalance to Alistair. She didn't press Sarah to stay, but instead gently introduced her to the real history of the manor and the village of Glenbrook. She told Sarah about the Macphersons' lineage, a clan of scholars and stonemasons, not just lords. She spoke of the manor not as a financial burden, but as a living entity, its walls holding the stories of every person who had ever lived within them. Fiona led Sarah to a hidden alcove in the library, a small recessed space behind a bookshelf. There, she found a collection of journals belonging to her great-great-uncle, Lord Macpherson. She had been too busy with her own plans to look for something like this before, but now a flicker of curiosity stirred within her. She began to read, and a new picture of the eccentric old man began to emerge. He was not just a hermit. He was a scholar, a lover of history, and a man obsessed with a specific lost piece of family lore. The journals spoke of a legendary artifact, the Stone of Whitmore, said to be a source of the manor's good fortune and the reason for the Macpherson clan's prosperity. It was also, according to local legend, a stone of immense historical significance linked to the very founding of Scotland. Lord Macpherson had spent his life searching for it, believing it to be hidden somewhere within the manor. His final entry was a cryptic message about the heir's key and the truth in the stone. This was her inheritance. Not just a manor, but a quest, and as the plot began to thicken, Sarah felt the weight of a choice she had yet to make. Part 3. The Key to the Past. Sarah's search for the Stone of Whitmore became an obsession. She spent her days poring over Lord Macpherson's journals, the text filled with local lore, historical references, and personal anecdotes that painted a vivid picture of a man who loved this manor more than anything. Her evenings were spent exploring the manor, tracing the intricate carvings in the stone, and trying to decipher the coded map. Alistair, noticing her change of heart, begrudgingly offered his assistance. The old man knew the manor's layout better than anyone, and together they began to unravel the mystery. Their partnership was a series of begrudging compromises and small victories. Alistair's knowledge of the manor's secret passages and architectural quirks, combined with Sarah's ability to logically decode the cryptic clues, proved to be an effective team. He showed her a hidden staircase, disguised as a section of the library's wall, leading to a forgotten turret. She, in turn, discovered that a specific constellation drawn in the journal's margin corresponded to a certain window in the turret, which, when the light hit it just right, revealed a small, carved symbol. Their collaboration brought them closer, chipping away at the walls of prejudice and mistrust that separated them. Alistair learned that Sarah wasn't a heartless city girl. She was a clever, determined woman who was starting to see the manor not as a building, but as a home. Sarah learned that Alistair wasn't just a grumpy old man. He was a fiercely loyal guardian of a family legacy he had been a part of his entire life. Their biggest breakthrough came when Fiona revealed a long-held family secret. The heir's key in Lord Macpherson's journals wasn't a physical key at all. It was a person, the last heir. This, she explained, was a safeguard, a way to ensure that the secrets of the manor would only be revealed to the person who had the legal authority to protect it. Lord Macpherson hadn't just left the manor to Sarah, he had left her a responsibility. Alistair, however, was still hiding a painful truth. He was Lord Macpherson's illegitimate son. The revelation was the core of the plot twist, a detail that reframed their entire relationship. He had believed all his life that he was the rightful heir, but his father, for reasons he never understood, had left him nothing but the job of caretaker. He had a deep personal stake in this that went beyond simple duty. He wasn't just protecting the manor, he was protecting his birthright. This new understanding gave Sarah and Alistair a shared purpose, and a new kind of alliance was forged. The final clue led them to a hidden vault beneath the manor's oldest tower. The vault was accessed through a series of interlocking stone gears, a mechanism that could only be operated by a specific sequence of movements, a puzzle that Sarah and Alistair solved together. Inside, they found the Stone of Whitmore. It was not a grand bejeweled rock, but a simple, polished piece of granite, no larger than a child's head, bearing the crest of the Macpherson clan. The true treasure, however, was not the stone itself. It was the deed hidden beneath it, a historical document proving that the lands surrounding the manor, which were being developed by the ruthless Marcus Thorne, had been illegally appropriated from the Macpherson clan centuries ago. The deed, when presented to the Scottish Land Court, would invalidate Thorne's claim and save the village of Glenbrook and the manor from ruin. The stakes were higher than ever, and a final confrontation with Marcus Thorne was now inevitable. Part 4. A New Beginning. The final confrontation took place in the Great Hall of Whitmore Manor. Marcus Thorne, having heard rumors of their discovery, arrived with a team of lawyers and a final, ultimatum-laced offer. He was prepared to buy the manor and the land, and if Sarah refused, he would sue her for breach of contract and delay tactics. The fate of Whitmore hung in the balance. Sarah, with the deed to the land in her hands, stood tall. She wasn't just a woman with a spreadsheet anymore. She was a Macpherson. She presented the document, her voice steady and clear as she explained the historical significance of the deed and the illegal appropriation of the land. Thorne's lawyers, recognizing the legal weight of the document, were forced to concede. The deal was off. The manor and the village were saved. In the quiet aftermath, as the sun set over Loch Fogmore, painting the sky in fiery hues, Sarah and Alistair stood together on the manor ramparts. The air was no longer heavy with gloom, but filled with the promise of a fresh start. Sarah looked at Alistair, the man who had been her nemesis and was now her partner. "My father was a stubborn man," Alistair said, his voice soft, "but he was also a clever one. He didn't want the manor to fall to a man who only saw a building. He wanted a true heir, someone who would love it and fight for it. He left it to you because he knew you had the strength to save it." Sarah smiled. "He left it to us, Alistair. To both of us." She had come to Scotland to liquidate an asset and return to her old life. Instead, she had found a family she never knew she had, a purpose she never knew she was missing, and a home that felt more real and more alive than any she had ever known. The manor was still in need of repair, a monumental task, but now she wasn't alone. She and Alistair, the pragmatist and the guardian, would rebuild it together. The new beat of Whitmore Manor had just begun.